Hey guys, it's been a while since I have uploaded any type of video. So I've kind of been busy working on a job that's been going on for the last 2 months or so, and it recently wrapped up. So I've got a little bit of free time here, so I'm just going to make a little bit of an update video, and I'm just going to talk about a couple of things. So if you've got the time, get you something to drink, pull up a chair, and let's sit and talk about a couple things. So as you can see, I've got the Destiny project open. I've decided to jump back to it to see if maybe I can complete it. I don't even remember when I got this thing started. It's been ongoing for a very long time, and I guess maybe what we could do is, this is the folder here that I have all the reference shots in. These are all the HD screenshots that I use from the show to kind of assist with the modeling and the layout of everything. And let's see, I've got all of these different scene files here, and the one that goes back the furthest, I believe, will probably be this one here. And you can see, here we go for the date. It actually goes back from modified here to December the 3rd of 2009. So you can see just how far back this project goes. So it was right around this time, I guess somewhere around here is when I started it. So somewhere back in 2009 is when I started it. It's actually been put off for a long time, and I need to get back to it and complete it. So I've been getting some questions on whether or not I'm going to release this project, and I think more than likely what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish it, and then once I finish it, I'm going to try to maybe render out some images or maybe some type of cool animation, something like that. And then once that's done, then maybe I'll release it. But you guys need to be aware that this is a very big scene file. It's reaching upwards of around 4 million polygons, and it's going to take a beefy machine to get this thing rendered out quickly. So if you've got a little dual core or a 4-core type of machine and you're not really packing a lot of power behind it, well, then your renders are going to be taking a while to get them out. All right, so we'll get back to the Destiny here in a little bit, but there's a couple other things that I want to talk about. The first thing is I've been getting some questions about that last video that I uploaded about the Mac Pro, or just how machines function in general with Cinema 4D. And it kind of ruffled a few feathers because it made its way around to a few online Cinema 4D communities. And some questions were asked. People wanted to know why I didn't talk about certain things. So I'm just going to quickly go over that because I don't want this to become boring. Okay, so the first thing I was asked was, why didn't I mention anything about Cinema 4D being able to use all cores when rendering? So the reason why I didn't say anything about that is because shouldn't we already know about that? I mean, unless you are a complete beginner at 3D in general, then you should already be aware that Cinema 4D will use all cores when it comes time to rendering, just like every other piece of 3D software out there. So I really didn't feel the need to have to come out and explain all that because most of you guys already know that. The second thing was, why didn't I say anything about the awesome rendering power of the Mac Pro, or the 12-core Mac Pro? Well, the reason why is because if you take the current 12-core Mac Pro and you compare it to the previous generation 12-core Mac Pro, there really is no difference in rendering speed. All right, so if you take the current single-socket Mac Pro, or just a single 12-core machine. Again, it does not have to be a Mac Pro. I'm just using the Mac Pro in this example. If you take a current 12-core Mac Pro and you compare it to the previous generation dual-socket 12-core Mac Pro, well, previous generation you could go with 2.6, 2.9, 3.3, or 3.4. Well, what's going to render faster? 12 cores at 3.4, 12 cores at 2.7. Okay, so you're probably thinking, well, what about Turbo Boost? Well, that's a great question. I wanted to try to get an idea of how Turbo Boost works. And previously, with the older chips, it was only single-threaded. It was not used for all available cores. So with these newer chips, Intel has changed the way Turbo Boost works, and now it will work with all cores. However, even though this new 12-core chip that's in the Mac Pro just happens to turbo boost up to 3.5 gigahertz, that does not mean that every core is going to be at 3.5 gigahertz when rendering. So I looked around to see if there was anyone that was monitoring the turbo boost frequency to see exactly where it went. Was it sustained at a certain speed? Was it dynamic? Was it fluctuating? So I found this graph, and this graph here shows what Turbo Boost does. It shows its behavior. So you can see here, represented by this orange bar on the graph, this is the 12-core Mac Pro. And you can see when one core is being used, the Turbo Boost is up to 3.5 gigahertz. When two cores are in use, it goes up to 3.4, and it gradually falls off until it bottoms out at around 3 gigahertz, which means when you're rendering with this chip, all 12 cores, 24 threads are in use, you're only going to get a maximum frequency of around 3 gigahertz. That's it. It's not going to go any higher when rendering. Also, over on the Mac Rumors forum, I found this, and what I was interested in more specifically was down at the bottom of page 2. This guy here posted some results. He said these are from the 12 core. You can see here when all 24 threads are in use, the maximum frequency was 2.97 gigahertz, which confirms this other one here, which was right around the 3 gigahertz mark. So what that means is when you're rendering with both of these machines, the previous generation Mac Pro with all 24 threads up and running, it's going to be at around 3.5, and this new Mac Pro is only going to be right around 3. So you've got a maximum of 3 gigahertz versus 3.5 gigahertz. Which one do you think is going to render faster? Personally, I don't see there being much of a difference between the two to actually say that one is superior or better than the other. That's why I really didn't say anything about this new one being any better at rendering, because when compared to the previous generation, this new one has no advantage over it whatsoever. So another question was, why didn't I say anything about the GPU rendering? Well, it's because Cinema 4D doesn't use the GPU to render. I already went over that. And besides, most of the third-party GPU renders for Cinema 4D are CUDA only. Now, it's very possible that in the future they could switch over to OpenCL. So here's a little graph I put together. Quick and dirty. These are the 5 main GPU render engines that are available. And you've got iRay, Mental Ray, Theia, Octane, and Indigo. All of these are CUDA compliant. You can use an NVIDIA GPU. Whereas if you have an AMD GPU, the only one that's going to work is Indigo. Now, I don't know any guys that are using Indigo. Now, it doesn't mean that no one isn't using Indigo. It just means every time I hear someone talk about GPU rendering, it's either with iRay, Theia, or Octane. Right now, I think Octane just recently got an update with some pretty cool updates in the release. So a lot of guys have been talking about that, but I really don't hear much about Indigo. So if you're on a Mac Pro, or not necessarily the Mac Pro, if you have an AMD GPU machine, none of these renders are going to work unless you've got Indigo. Now, it doesn't mean that they're never going to go to OpenCL. More than likely, in a future release, they probably will. But for the time being, they're CUDA only. So that's why I really didn't say anything about it, because it was going to be another negative remark against purchasing a dual AMD GPU machine. So hopefully that kind of answers those questions, because I really didn't want to have to spend a whole lot of time explaining all this. It should be very apparent, but I guess some people just are not aware of it. All right, so recently I've had the opportunity to use a box renderPRO. And it is the 20-core, 40-thread version of that unit. And I have to say that this little machine is just absolutely amazing. There's no way I could have got the project rendered out that I've just recently worked on that took about 2 months to put it together. And I had to render it out, and on my machine, which is just, just a single workstation with no render slaves, there's no way I could have got it rendered out in time on just my machine alone. So I am very fortunate to have the opportunity to use it. So I just want to quickly show you guys how that works and just kind of quickly go over that. I wish I had a video camera to do an unboxing. Otherwise, I would have done an unboxing to show you guys, but I do have some pictures. So if you guys want to see some pictures, I know that pictures are not exactly the best, but it's better than nothing. So maybe in the future, I can kind of give you a video tour. Got to get a video camera and just kind of give you a tour of all of my stuff here. And maybe I'll still have the renderPRO at that time. Okay, so what exactly is a renderPRO? This is the renderPRO right here, sitting on top of my workstation. The renderPRO is nothing more than just a small, slim render slave that you can sit off to the side. It's actually designed to sit on top of Box's workstations. You can take them and you can sit them on top, or you can stack them off to the side somewhere. And they're quiet, they're compact, and they're basically just used for CPU rendering. That's it. This one here is the dual Xeon 10-core unit. So it's got two 10-core Xeons in it. So that's 20 cores. And with hyperthreading, that's 40 threads. So 20 cores, 40 threads. And this is what I was using off to the side with NetRender to get the job rendered out. So this thing here really picked up the slack and really chewed through a lot of data. I think in all there was probably about 10,000 frames. And this one here probably rendered out most of them. So here's a couple more images here. Now these renderPROs, they don't come with any type of fancy GPU. They're mainly CPU processing. So they do have a very basic small GPU hookup in the back, but that's just in case you want to hook up a monitor to connect to the unit directly. However, right now I'm connected through the network. So I'm using kind of like a KVM console just to kind of like go over, kind of like a remote desktop type of thing. That way I don't have to hook up a monitor to it. So I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. So here's a couple more images. This is the unit here in the box. This is another box that comes inside of the box, and this just got software on it, an extra power cord. They give you a t-shirt, a filter for the front, which is nice, a couple of cables, and they also give you a USB thumb drive with some software on it called BoxView, which is really nice. I'm going to show you that here in a moment. Okay, so BoxView is just a remote IP type software, and you just connect to the device. All right, so here's the KVM console. You can see this is just a remote desktop over to the renderPRO to control it. Like I said, that way I don't have to hook up a monitor for it. So you can see I've got NetRender installed on it, which I've been using quite a bit. And just to kind of show you guys what it's capable of, I'm going to run Cinebench R15. Now I'm not going to do the OpenGL test because, again, like I said, the GPU in this thing is very small, it's very basic, and it's only there for the purpose of hooking up a monitor in case you want to connect to the machine directly. So I'm not going to run the GPU test this time. So there we go. 20 cores, 40 threads. And there you go. All right, so that is the renderPRO, and I just wanted to share some of that with you guys just to show you what it's all about. Maybe in the future I'll do a tutorial on NetRender because this is the first time that I've actually used NetRender, and I had to learn it the hard way. So of course I picked up a few things along the way and learned a few things about it, what not to do, how to get it working properly, because I got a lot of missing texture errors. So maybe in the future I'll do a tutorial on that. I'm not really sure if you guys use NetRender or not. I'm sure some of you probably do. But maybe in the future I'll do something like that. But this is the renderPRO, and I think it is a really great little machine to have. All right, so another thing I just wanted to quickly talk about is I'm thinking about putting together another tutorial series, but this one's going to be all about Turbulence FD. Now, if I decide to do this, it's going to be just like the sub-D modeling series that I put together. So it's going to start out with an introduction video. It's going to go over the very basics of Turbulence FD, and it's just going to go from there. So for example, in the first video, it will probably go over the very basics of fire and what is fire, because Turbulence FD works somewhat in a real-world type of way. So if you can understand how fire works, then you can understand how Turbulence FD works. So in the first video, it will kind of be something like that, and then from there, the second one will go into the basics The third one will probably go into voxels and what a voxel is and how do the voxels work and making sure that your voxel grid is set up correctly with your objects and all that kind of stuff. And then from there, we'll go through the different channels and from there and so on and so forth. And then maybe by the end of the series, then maybe we can put something together and do something cool with it. I don't really know. That's probably going to be into the future because it's going to take time to put together a long series on TFD. All right, so if you guys want to see a Turbulence FD tutorial, comment below and let me know. So just let me know if you want that. If you do, then I'll start putting together some notes on it and thinking about how I want to do it. All right, so I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about. Again, the Destiny here, I'm hoping to have this finished soon. I really do, because I don't want it to be like the last Stargate-based project that I was working on, which was Atlantis. And I never got around to finishing that. And it's kind of funny because I opened up that project the other day to look at it. And when I did, I saw so many modeling errors, so many texturing errors. And I thought, oh, wow, I don't even want to have to deal with it. But more than likely, I'm probably just going to leave it as is. And maybe I'll just release the Atlantis project again if and when I do release Destiny. So maybe I'll release both of them together. But the problem is that the Atlantis project goes so far back that it's kind of back in my pre-modeling days when I was learning how to model. So there's like modeling errors all over the place. So I don't know. Maybe I'll release it if I decide to release Destiny. But these projects have been ongoing for a long time and I'd like to get them wrapped up and finish them. So I think that pretty much wraps all this up. I'm done talking about all this stuff. I really don't think there was anything else I wanted to go over. Again, if you want me to do the TFD series, let me know. I can kind of start putting together an outline of what I want to do with that. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm done. See you guys in the next video.